We saw, before we went on the break, we saw Brother Govind talking about the Sai initiative, the Sai 100 initiative for Swami's birthday. 100 birthday, 100 years of the avatar will be observed in 2025, next year. Isn't that wonderful? And we get a chance to be part of that. But, the world is in such a state, and, there is a climate crisis, there is an environmental crisis. And, I ask myself all the time, what kind of world will my grandchildren, I don't have any yet, what kind of world will my grandchildren be living in? What will the quality of air be? What will the water, or will they be able to even go outside? That sort of thing. So eat clean food, good food grown in their own yard, that sort of thing. Or even food grown without chemicals commercially produced. As it is right now, we can hardly get that, right? So those are the things that keep me prodding along and trying to talk to others about what we can do. Now, in the context of Swami, right, and his teachings, right, he has always emphasized the fact that we have to endeavor to get to the truth about nature. That the Upanishads declared, Esavasyam idam. Is one thing, but then you had to ask yourself, what does Swami really want me to see in this message when I stand before fellow officers? And I had struggled to get to sleep, and then eventually one word came into my mind, and it kept going over and over and over, and then it was like my eyes opened. Well, internally, my eyes opened in terms of clarity. And I realized that this is what he wanted me to say to you. One word, and that word is Soham. Soham. Right? It just means I am that. I am that, I am he, I am she, I am it. It does not say I am me or I am God. It says I am that. And that, in the context of that, that meaning, that message from Swami that I only got last night, I want to go through the slides with you, all right? So he says nature's role is to help man. Man is the crowning achievement of the evolutionary process. And nature's role is to help man realize the divinity immanent in all of creation, right? Not just in humans. We are not that superior to everything else. We have a special role, right? Because we are a crowning achievement, but we have to work with nature. We have to support nature. And when I read that, I also looked at, I tried to remember, I had seen one time a time span of 24 hours in terms of the creation of the world, right? The evolutionary process. And it says that if it took 23 hours and 20, so how much is that? I'm not very good at the math, but long and short of it is that humans, only have existed on the earth in the last 3 seconds. The last 3 seconds, right? So we are the crowning achievement of the evolutionary process, right? But in that last 3 seconds, we have learned, we have come to do something, we have adopted some very destructive habits. And we have seen ourselves as superior to everything else around us, and we have caused havoc on the planet, right? So I got my 5-minute marker, so I'm going to go along. But just to give you that perspective, right? So in 3 seconds, we have been doing so much damage. So next. So about animals, Swami says, this is so important. He says each animal is treading its own dharma, and it does not overstep or undermine. They have greater cooperation and mutual love than even men. He said man can live better if he learns from animals. When the Lord incarnates, he has as one of his tasks the protection of sadhus, beings with quiet, innocent natures. And among animals are countless sadhus. And I looked for this particular picture to show you because it has prey and predator side by side, right? The lion only hunts when it is hungry. And Zebra has developed very strong muscles to get away from its predator, right? So they have a symbiotic relationship, but you know, so as Swami says, they are treading their own dharma. So, next. So why should we focus on the environment as Sai devotees? Do we see this as an opportunity to express, to embody love, to embody right action, to bring peace in the world? Do we see it as an opportunity to embody non-violence, as in taking insects out of the, without killing them, you know? Right action as in taking care of the animals that are orphaned or abandoned, that sort of thing. Do we see it as an opportunity to align with our greater selves, or truth, to exercise truth in mind, in action, in words? You know? So these are the questions that we consider when we are thinking about focusing on the environment. So next slide. So I put this slide here because I have I wanted to remind you about this particular thing. Agriculture has a big impact on the environment, right? So one of the questions I get asked a lot of is if I am into agriculture because I am into the environment. And there's a misconception that agriculture, that if you grow food, you are good for the environment, you're helping the environment, you care about the environment. Unfortunately, because agriculture is associated with land clearing, deforestation, and a lot of chemical use, it has a negative impact on the environment. So if we can address those things, right, we will, we'll be able to lower the impact of agriculture. So next slide. Okay, I'm stopping it. Okay, all right. So next slide. So I asked myself the question, and I went in search of this data. How is Trinidad and Tobago doing in terms of carbon emissions compared to the rest of the world? So this is Trinidad and Tobago compared with the United States, China, United Kingdom, and India. And so this is per capita, right? So per person in Trinidad and Tobago, our emissions, carbon dioxide emissions, are way higher than even the USA, right? Even China, even the United Kingdom, per capita, right? So that is something to be concerned about. The next slide. Okay, so here now we're comparing ourselves to Suriname, Guyana, and Jamaica, the larger nations that are part of the SSIO, right? In our zone. And again, we are way high. And we also climbed really high, for a long time. That was probably during our peak oil and gas era. And only recently started to come down. But we have a long way to go to really align ourselves with, what our neighbors are doing. Right, next one. Right, so the green section there is where most of our carbon emissions are coming. Emissions by fuel or industry type, right? So the green is gas, right? So again, because we're an oil-producing country, that, it ties in with that. So next slide. All right, so again, this is what the data is showing, that Trinidad and Tobago has real environmental issues in these areas. Our water pollution from agricultural chemicals, right? So as I said before, those farmers that indiscriminately use the chemical, the pesticides and the herbicides and stuff like that, it ends up leaching into the waterways and ends up, damaging the marine environment, right? So we have that happening. We have industrial waste because we are one of the few islands in the Caribbean that have industry, and we have widespread pollution of waterways. What else? And the coastal areas. I don't know if you ever see
what Mayaro, the East Coast looks like when the first rains come down. The coastline is littered with plastics, illegal dumping, deforestation, soil erosion, right, fisheries and wildlife depletion, right? So we kind of covered those things already. So these are some of the issues that we could look at addressing when we consider what we can do to help the environment. Okay. All right. So very, very quickly, this is activity that happened in South Africa recently for Sssiott 100. They had an exercise and diet program. So they called the community out and they did some Zumba and some other things, yoga and stuff like that, and did some tree planting as well. This is, it's wrongly captioned. This is in Romagna, Italy, and they're planting an orchard of 700 apple trees here, right? So for our question and answer section, right, what we want to do is address 3 questions. What can we do at a national level to help the environment? And if possible, you know, as soon as possible, let's set some dates and possible venues for events, right? We would like to have, this is Dr. Gautam and I were talking, and we would like to have 4 tree planting events, at least 25 trees in each region. More if more would be preferred. So we also wanted to participate in tree planting events organized by other NGOs, and we want to have an environmental fair like last year, which coincided with the Ishwaramba Day Walk for Values. So it's right, so it'll be an educational outreach, and we want to do an environmental cleanup. So this is at a national level. Next slide, right. And at a regional level, whatever you can do in your own regions, you need to ask yourself what you can do and support and partner with environmental organizations that work within your community or work within our communities. In Mayaro, there's the Flying Tree Environmental Group, and they actually have some kind of flying device that they use to scatter seeds airborne, you know, and so you can actually take a ride in it, and but it's good to support them and also get involved in whatever they're doing as well. Of course, we're trying our best to phase out the single-use plastic. So I think we're making some progress. Again, a lot of it is up here. We need to identify what the restrictions are, what the limitations are, what challenges in achieving that, and try to address that, right? And we also want to phase out agricultural chemicals in our home gardens. For commercial gardens, I know that will be very challenging, but there are regenerative methods that you could probably transition to over some time, but you need to explore that, right? At an individual level, what can you do? These are some of the suggestions, right? Phase out single-use plastics, phase out agricultural chemicals in your gardens, observe Earth Hour on March 23rd. This is turning off lights by 8:30 p.m. and possible partnership with these NGOs, right? And yeah, you can click to the last one. So the end of it is that we don't need a handful of people doing zero waste perfectly, because we think that is a bit too far-fetched. I don't know anybody who does it perfectly, really. And, but we do need millions of people doing it imperfectly. That is where we'll have more impact. So the more and more of us take action, the more we are likely to have an impact, right? So Swami's words, love is a divine quality in man. It should not be only shown to people, but also include the birds, wild animals, and other living creatures. True Samskrita, or refinement, lies precisely in this expansive love that makes us give up narrow-mindedness and develop broad-mindedness. From it comes true joy to ourselves as well as to society. Only in this process of refinement will human nature become the divine being. So it is only through Soham that we will break down those walls of separation and really progress along the spiritual path and be able to serve and uplift nature. Because in serving nature, we also serve ourselves. I want to thank you. I don't know, do we have the? Yes. Okay.
Okay, so 2 minutes of questions. Yeah. All right. Okay, so this is at a regional level. We want to ask you, um, you
Okay,
know,
so what we want to achieve here today is a plan for centers to commit to say they are going to plant 25 trees in a region. Now that's not a lot. So I feel,
we can double it.
can we do 25 trees per center? So we need to hear from you.
To a person.
2 trees per person present here. So we have about 80 people present here. So we want to do this by what date?
160. Let's try and achieve this by November, the end of November, 30th
By
of
Baba's
November.
birthday
By
this
Baba's
year.
birthday, yeah.
Each person can do this. Plant 2 trees. Trees, how go we giving it? 2. Make it a tree, not a shrub.
Yeah, so that's one of the
Come on,
questions.
we can plant. Now I want Sister Kalauti and them to speak a little bit. We could come and plant something in the eco park. We could, right, so can you share a little bit?
Sairam devotees,
Sarah.
I can offer you all 10 acres of land in my community to plant as much fruit trees as possible. We have Eco Park, it's 10 acres of land, and you're all welcome to come together and let us do some tree planting. Why I'm saying fruit trees? Because it provides food for the birds and people as well. And also, as I am making my contribution, I believe to eliminate single-use plastic, we can work as communities in providing the appropriate bins and assisting, like we do it in the Eco Park. We will, my brother Bobby and our community will pick up the bottles at the end of the day, the plastic bottles and garbage, and dispose of it in the right manner. So I think we really need to sensitize communities about the use of single-use plastic and how it really affects the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sister.
Sarah again.
Sarah.
So, let me give you a few tips.
This is Brother Charlie from Patiram Trees.
Right, so I always plant trees and I send photos to my sister. Plant trees on my own with my 2 grandsons. Right, I always do that. All right, and one tip in your car, I make a little garbage pocket. So when I wouldn't throw my sweetie paper outside, I put it in my car, and then when I reach home, after a little while. But I am a living testimony of environment gardening, because I take all those who are in the South Kitchen, I take all the compost, and I make a heap home, and I'm using that right now as manure. Right, and I will furnish a little video later on. I could have done it, but I didn't know. And I have started 6 beds with stuff that I planted already, and some are ready to be reaped, and for our kitchen. So I do that on my own. Plus, by my wares stand, my wares sink, there's a little container. So all my the compost, I will put this on from the ware stand on there. Also, I heard on the radio, and I am to do that Monday. All the water from my wastewater, from the shower, whatever, I am going to cut the line and reroute it into my lawn. I have a big lawn. So I will water. My lawn will be always green. I did it a few years ago. So, in Pinal, we don't get water too often. All right? So this is some of the things we can do, right? So something is in my brain, but I forgot. So this is a few tips that I
Yes,
hope to share
thank
with
you so much for that, brother. Yeah.
One more tip I could suggest to Marlene is that, the young adults, a hike into the Northern Range, and plant trees on the hike. But one more tip, as Charlie was talking about, all of us are vegetarians, and when we're cutting up our vegetables to make, vegetable stir fry, you cut up the broccoli and you cut up the carrots and you scrape out the bad parts. You can boil that and make a vegetable stock and freeze it. So when next time you're making soup, you can use that vegetable stock from the unwanted parts of the vegetables that you want to compost or throw away. Sarah.
Sister Marlene, plastic recycling is a big part of the environment, right? And I think what we could do as side devotees from a center perspective, every Thursday or Wednesday when you're going to center, bring a little bag with all your plastic bottles and bring it to the center.
So
I think individually, let me start it as a center project because everybody have a little bag home. Sometimes they do it, sometimes they don't do it. Mm-hmm. If we make a commitment as a center to really recycle plastic, and you actually walk with a little paper bag with the 10 bottles you use for the week, the chairman or somebody or the youth officer will take the responsibility to get it to the right spot where it could be recycled. At least we could make an immediate impact from a plastic recycling perspective.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Sister Benji will be the last.
Yeah, don't worry, we're doing good. Sister Kalauti, I want to just throw a challenge out to you to set a date for Sessiott to document where we will be going to plant some trees at your eco park. So you'll let us know a date, maybe when the rainy season starts. So a little bit say that. Corpus Christi is what date this year? June? Right, so we are going to so this is what a SMART plan is, to set a date, a time, and an amount so that we can do this. So that will be one set of planting trees we'll do. Yeah. The other thing is we shouldn't wait for people to bring plastic to the center. I don't like that idea. Just don't use plastic bottles. Bring your own bottle, drink from a bottle home. Don't buy no case of water, just use your water from home and so on. Thank you.
Okay. So, all right. Okay. So, I take all the points here, and yes, I acknowledge what Sister Minty is saying, but I also have seen where it has been difficult for some people to stop the use of the plastic bottles, the waters in the plastic bottles. So, but the point I think Brother Vinu is making is, dispose of it properly. Be that responsible citizen so that you dispose of it properly. And by bringing it to the center, it becomes something that the center is doing. So if it is feasible for the center to do it, then by all means do it, right? What I would want to mention is that the eye care bins are located in all schools, and even if you don't have a child in the school, you can ask the girl to drop your plastics into there. Not just plastics, but the eye care bins can be mixed. The bags that you take there can be mixed with like the Tetra packs and glass bottles, as well as aluminum cans like the soda cans and stuff, and your plastic bottles. All right, so with that, I'll leave you. Thank you so much for the little extra time. And Sarah, right, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Sister Marlene. That was definitely an informative presentation. Did you all enjoy that? All right. So a lot of food for thought, a lot of things that we can apply in our daily lives, and you really have to take it back upon yourselves to carry it back to your family life, to your personal life, and to the centers, right? Next up, we want to talk about community adoption and community EHV. We have Mr. Raul Hiralal, who is the principal of the Londonville Satisai Primary School with us today, who will be giving us a wonderful presentation on the work that he is doing with the school and the organization. Please welcome Mr. Hiranal.
Salam to everybody. All protocols observed, respectful office bearers, members of the Sssiott. I thank you for the opportunity to present on Sssiott education and human values through the lens of Londonville Sssiott Primary School. This presentation will reflect upon the development of human values education in the Londonville community and environs through the offer of Sssiott education to its residents. This presentation hopes to shed light on how education and human values can be built upon as we move towards Sci 100. In the presentation this morning, we will anchor the content to the Sci 100 initiatives, especially that of Sssiott education. We will also look at how SSEHV is being implemented at the school and its community. In so doing, we will examine some SSEHV practices, and following that, we'll undertake a review of SSEHV through various school activities and projects. Finally, we'll try to project these programs into the future and describe opportunities for expansion of SSEHV through service. As it relates to Sssiott education, the Sci 100 initiatives state, the children of SSE are the next generation of leadership and members of the Sci community. More and more children will be engaged in SSE by Sci centers and groups worldwide to solidify children's spiritual foundation to help them blossom into youth and adulthood. This statement highlights the direction of the education work of the organization. It identifies the primary goal to build a firm spiritual foundation. It is this spiritual foundation that can subsequently be used to foster the holistically developed child that we want, the child who becomes a boon or a gift to the society and not a burden. In fact, solidifying this spiritual foundation helps the values to spring forth from the program. Now, look at the phrase next generation of leadership and envision it beyond the boundaries of the organization. Think about the children who are the products of Sssiott education as contributors to the wider society. Everyone here, I think, appreciates that the fabric of society in Trinidad and around the world is changing, and it's changing rapidly. And change is a good thing, but the foundation of basic values shouldn't be undermined in the process. So it is this initiative, therefore, that underscores how important, how significant is the role that the Sssiott is playing by being involved in formal schooling of children. So ask the honest questions. Why should the organization get into schools? Why is this school positioned in this community? Yes, educational systems are there and some of them are producing excellence in academics, but how does the society look? Perhaps the SSE approach, therefore, has a significant impact to make, and perhaps this approach is beginning to take root. So, how do we solidify the foundation arising out of this initiative? We attempt to do so through the approach of education and human values. And this requires a deliberate and careful planning for the teaching of values and for the integration of values in school life. In fact, Londonville Sssiott Primary School is the only primary school in Trinidad that utilizes a specific, directed pedagogy to the teaching and practice of values by means of the SSEHV curriculum. The public schools use the Values, Character, Citizenship Education Program, the VCCE for the educators among us, and it is meritorious in its own right, but it has faced numerous issues surrounding implementation. At LSSPS, SSEHV is taken directly, where values education is taught and addressed as a formal subject, and it is even assessed as a formal subject. Perhaps more importantly, though, opportunities are created to practice values through the school life, such as in the daily assemblies, in school events, and in projects. Assemblies, for example, are universal in nature, and they surround character-building activities. Events and projects are focused on values and service, so we strive to ensure that the children are never far removed from the language of values and the practice of values, so that they can appreciate how positive values can be applied without exception. How can the impact of SSEHV be examined? So again, ask the tough questions. Is it working? There are various techniques in SSEHV. However, one such approach that we will spotlight this morning is that of silent sitting. LSSPS is a young school, and though it is so, we must ask the questions like, how is the technique working? What are the outcomes of the technique? In what ways can it be built upon? So we choose silent sitting, not to say that it is more important than the other techniques in SSEHV, but because of the direct influence that we see it has on building the culture of a place, the culture of the people in it, and the culture of the communities from which they come. The practice is undertaken at various opportunities throughout the school day, and it helps to allow for the development of focus, concentration, and increased awareness. It underpins the disciplinary approaches in the school. So it recognizes that there are challenges, but it takes challenges and applies this approach in mitigating those challenges. It is used as a tool in those situations, and it contributes to the development of the school's ethos. And quite importantly, it leads into a deeper spiritual exploration. And so it begins to sow those seeds for development in that area. So as a technique, it builds that spiritual foundation that we referenced earlier in the Sci 100 initiative. We'll take a look at a short video that compiles some authentic reflections on the technique of silent sitting.
My name is Sonal Ramuta. My class is Standard 2 and I go to Londonville Sssiott Primary.
Vinay Varun Sukhdeo. I'm Standard 3 and the name of my school is Londonville Sssiott Primary School.
Hello everyone, my name is Janaya Benjamin and I am a Standard 4 student of the Londonville Sssiott Primary School.
Van Ramsup and I am from Londonville Sssiott Primary School.
Sarah, my name is Mrs. Sabrina Lauta Joseph. I am currently the senior teacher of Londonville Sssiott Primary School and the Infant 1 teacher.
I think silent sitting is about keeping calm in a cool way and taking deep breaths in a hard situation.
Say that silent sitting is a type of meditation that is help you when you are angry or when someone is bothering you to get into your inner peaceful way to actually hear your thoughts, and it's very respectful.
When you do silent sitting, you focus more on your work and what you are doing.
You relax, calm, just like a new person.
Describe that feeling as a calm feeling. Like it calms your body when you're in a difficult situation.
I feel peaceful, I feel calm, and I feel like less angry and less like feeling like to lash out at the other thing.
In my heart, in my body, and like all throughout my body and my hands and stuff.
It's been very helpful because all the stress and pressure of getting my second choice, first choice, it really soothes me. It's a good way to be peace and hear and calm yourself. At home, when I feel nervous, I can just silence sit and I can hear my thoughts and be calm.
It also assists them in being aware of their body movements and those things around them, especially in terms of being able to, the silence helps them to listen more to sounds, what they can hear from a far distance, what they can hear close by. It helps them to see that silence will help them to focus.
A time I practiced silent sitting was when I got into an argument with my cousin. So after I went upstairs, I sat down on the couch. I took deep breaths. It made me feel calm. When Ms. Susha is talking and I do not understand the math problem, silent sitting makes me focus more on what she is saying and understand when I'm doing my homework. I go outside by the tree, the big tree we have outside. I carry my blanket and my pillow, and I sit outside and do my homework. The quietness and how silent it is while I'm doing my homework. I focus more. And like, the trees, the leaves of the trees moving.
When like my brother was annoying me and bothering me, so I went in my grandma and grandpa room. That's when my grandpa they went to pick up my grandma in Shogunas because that's just where she's working. So I go on and I did some silent sitting, and when I come back, go to my brother, I tell him, Navish, please stop annoying me and bothering me. I felt more peaceful and like I felt less like to lash out at my brother and say things back to him.
At Infant 1, you have students who are they are very adventurous, they are very talkative. It's really hard to get them to sit down and be quiet. But with the practice of silent sitting, we have achieved a lot of benefits, especially from this level of infants. For instance, we would have done, last week would have been self-control, where we would have done silent sitting based on being aware of how to control themselves during a silent period. It took some doing in terms of they had to be able to know how to sit silently. And because we've been doing silent sitting since they've started at Londonville Sssiott Primary School, it has become easier for them. So last week when we did the one with self-control, we included the basics of silent sitting, which would have been to let them breathe in and out. Then they would have been able to be aware of their feet firmly on the ground, their body, itself, the way their heart beats, their breathing. And then we would we would take that silent sitting method and we would use it in the sub-value of the week. So we would have used it in self-control, where we would have explained to them that to think of sometimes where they got angry or they weren't able to regulate their emotions very well. They didn't do well with speaking to a friend, maybe a family member, when they got angry. And while they're in the state of silence, we let their mind go on to that place where they got angry or whoever they got angry with. And we would tell them to focus on what they could have done better.
This country might use it by when everything problems and all the stuff that's going on, they could just use silent sitting to calm and would figure it out, and then the world and our country to be a better place to live in.
I think silent sitting can help people of our country think about their actions before doing.
It has affected the school in a more positive way. If I can make reference to other schools that, say I would have worked when I was in practicum. This is my first school that I've actually been working at as a teacher, but I've had practicum experiences in other schools which would have been government schools. Some of them would have been government-assisted schools. And the level that you see here in terms of noise levels and all of that, in terms of seeing the students' behavior, I think the silent sitting has a major part to play in that. You don't hear the type of noise that you would hear in other schools. You don't see the children really screaming or shouting or getting on in any sort of way, and I think that the silent sitting positively impacted on that.
If everyone practices silent sitting in Trinidad and Tobago, it will be a more peaceful place than it already is.
So we hope by continuing to build communities of practice through this technique and as the school grows, that we'll strengthen the ethos of Sssiott education and shape the character of those who practice in the direction of spiritual unfoldment. With an attitude of values and service in mind, some of the activities and projects undertaken in the school and in this community include the collaborative service activities such as the food hamper and meal distribution drives, free counseling, they offer free counseling for students and families, the Forces for Good initiatives through corporate partnership. The Londonville Sssiott Primary School applied for the Massey Foundation's Forces for Good grant that was intended to support the school's environmental initiatives, and the school was awarded a grant in the amount of $10,000 US. Major projects that grant is intended to serve is the establishment of a long-term sustainable school gardening project in collaboration with the work of the organization in that area. We have reached the phase of a soft launch of that garden. So we have some bodi and tomatoes and hot peppers that are being tended to by the children of the Standard 3. And the hope is to expand that into the community kitchen as well and develop those crops into food items. The second very important part of that service of the grant is the transition of the school away from single-use plastics. As was spoken about in the previous presentation, we have already engaged the company Desal Tech to provide us 3 filtration systems for servicing both the primary school and the ECCE that neighbors us so that the children can, and those members on the compound can access filtered water and use their reusable bottles. And so we can move away from single-use plastics, which we're currently averaging at about 100 to 150 per day, which we recycle, but the direction is reducing now in addition to recycling. Cultural and religious observances, our recently completed values-based carnival, our celebrations of Christmas, Diwali, Eid, and coming up in the next 2 weeks in the holy month of Ramadan, the school will host an iftar or breaking of the fast for the members of the school community and the Londonville community as well. And of course, we have collaborated with the organization on larger events like the Walk for Values and the Health and Wellness Fairs. What is the potential impact of this program? Could we quantify it? If we go back to the Sci 100 initiative, who are the participants that are directly and indirectly impacted by the principles enshrined in Sssiott education? So here's a quantitative picture. 123 students, currently 9 members of the alumni and growing very rapidly, 12 members of staff and growing very rapidly, more than 200 current family members directly connected to the school, and more than 20 alumni family members already. This is the impact that one Sssiott school can have on a single community. It is substantial, it is potent, and it is long-lasting. Of course, potential left dormant would be very unfortunate. So I encourage you now to allow a single thought to please resonate in your heart. Say to yourself that despite who I am and the role that I play, this Sssiott school is mine. As a member of the SSSIOTT, say to yourself that I am directly invested in the success of this school. The success of this school is the success of the founder's vision and mission. Say to yourself that I am directly responsible, I am ready, and I am willing to further grow the work of Sssiott education in Trinidad. Let us anchor these thoughts in a quote of the school's founder. All service should be regarded as an offering to God, and every opportunity to serve should be welcomed as a gift from God. When service is done in this spirit, it will lead to self-realization. In order to maximize that potential, the children of Londonville Sssiott Primary School need you. How can you help? By serving the academic needs, volunteering at the school for remedial literacy and numeracy, volunteering for homework support. We are in need of the development of a homework center after school, and it needs to be serviced by personnel. Volunteering for classroom substitutions, maintenance work, work on the ground. Serving the holistic needs through holistic development, for example, volunteering to assist with the development of our co-curricular and extracurricular programs through art, music, dance, drama, sports. Yes, and we have started that through the work of the organization already through Ms. Ariel. Serving sustainability, and please pay attention to this one. Foster Sci relationships with the alumni and mentor them to become young adults and long-serving Sci families. Share with others about the school and its work. Share about it at your centers. Encourage support in various ways. And I open an invitation to you this morning. Visit us see the work on the ground, become inspired, bring others along with you. I hope that you will take these opportunities, you'll encourage others to do so. There's lots happening at Londonville Sssiott Primary, and we need you on the team. I'm very grateful for your time and for your attention this morning. I know that we would have spoken already about questions. Perhaps I've answered some of them in asking them, and also provided some opportunities for you. So I've done most of the work as it relates to the plans and the suggestions. I'm not sure if time is going to allow for any thoughts here. Yes?
I just want to make one comment. I want to thank Roll for his beautiful contribution. And going back to how SWAMI works, you know, when sometime 1 or 2 years ago when Sister Vinti and I were discussing, we needed a principal for the school. And we've advertised and we spoke to side devotees all over the place. Nobody turned up. We got 3 people applying. Roll was one of them. We didn't know at the time that Roll was a side devotee, all right? And with Swami's grace, you know, out of those 3, Roll passed the interview. And, you know, I want to publicly thank Roll for the wonderful job he's doing. He's a wonderful young man, inspirational to all our young people in the country. And one final thing. I want every single one of you here to understand that helping our school is the greatest savor you can do. You know, this organization is evolving. Long ago we used to talk about visiting hospitals and doing this and doing that. But this savor, supporting our schools, whether financially or however it is the best savor you'll ever do, because you're creating, you know, a new generation to change Trinidad and Tobago. Sarah.
Sairam again, everyone. It's not a question, actually, it's just something that I had to share with regards to the schools. And this is really for my beloved president, because I know the schools are very dear to her heart. Just last week, Saturday, a week ago, someone asked me, so how many schools is there in the organization? And I boldly and proudly said, how many schools were there? 5 schools, 4 of the preschools and the primary school. And I stated exactly where there was, something that I myself didn't know a couple years ago. Thank you.
There's one today.
Sairam, Mr. Hiralal, I first must commend you on your presentation. Very thorough, and everybody sitting in this hall would now have a very, very clear vision of what the Sssiott School is all about. Though you spoke on Londonville, it is a format we use for all the schools. However, I know you answered a part of this question already, but just to take me further into it, after the children sit the SEA, they go out into the wider world. They go out into different schools. They will no longer be under the umbrella of the Sri Sathya Sai Baba organization or the Londonville Primary School. As leaders, how are we planning to keep these children under the fold of the Sri Sathya Sai Baba organization? Because as we continue to say, these children are the future of the organization. So how are we really planning to reach out to these children? You know, from experiences, we know that if my child go to, let's say, St. Helena Hindu School, when that child move on to Lakshmi, we somewhat lost that child in there, somewhere in there. So I don't know if there's a plan, but if there is one, can you please tell us how we plan to keep these children who we have handed so much morals and values to and don't lose them in the system? Thank you, Sairam.
Thank you for your question. I think you've, as we have pointed out, identified one of the areas that have the most potential for the development as it relates to service opportunities at this school. There is no formalized plan yet for the development of a program that can keep the children who graduate, the alumni, close to the work of Sssiott organization and Sssiott education. And I think this is now where the various arms of the organization can now hold on to them. For example, the young adults. I was listening to conversations on my table earlier, and somebody made a potent point that we need to find ways to get the young people involved. They're right here. They've learned about Baba's work, they've learned about the values, so now grab them up and take them and do activities with them, do projects with them, invite them for things that are specifically geared to them, and keep them connected. And we have to be consistent in the approach as well. Many of them hail from the community of Londonville and environs. Many of their families, that 9 who graduated as our first group last year, many of those families were intrinsically connected to the work of this school. So not only just sending their children to this school, but supporting the work and coming to programs, etc. So those are really potent avenues to grab them up, and I feel this is where the various arms can get involved. Thank you very much.
Just one question again before you leave, and kudos to you and your team for the excellent work you guys are doing at the primary school. Just one question, this is probably just for information for everybody. So how do we, the organization, manage this whole facility, or what we talk about, the running of the school? How is it, in a little nutshell, if someone you can say to, probably the president can tell us, how does this happen in terms of funding and resources?
Sairam to everyone. Well, we received some grants, some donations from some devotees many years ago, but of course this is a depleting fund. We actually spend $80,000 a month paying teachers' salaries and so on. We have applied for denominational status, but we are on the road to that. In the meantime, we do need, funds for the school because, as I said, we have limited funds which will run out sooner than later. So basically, it's funded by devotees bringing donations. But Roll, I just want to make one suggestion that you can also reach out to the graduates and invite them to our programs. When we send the invites to the school, we will reach out to them. And as one of our SMART plans, we will make a plan for involving them in our young adult programs. Yes? Sarah?
And one final thing, we should start thinking of a secondary school.
So a very, very heartfelt thank you, Brother Roll. That was a fabulous and informative presentation. I would really like to encourage each and every one of you to actually visit the school if you haven't done so yet, because actually visiting the school is like coming here. Being here, you feel the vibe, you get the inspiration. When you go to the school is, well, I got to say it's almost like a temple. It's on the temple compound. But when you interact with the kids and the children and you feel the love and you see their joy and enthusiasm, it's infectious. It's amazing. You will be totally inspired. I was lucky enough to be invited to the last graduation ceremony that they had, and it was an amazing presentation. To see the developments of the little children there, it is what I think Swami wants, and to be able to participate in that as much as you can. Please make the efforts. So, thank you very much, Principal, for doing an outstanding job so far. And just a quick comment in terms of the question that was asked. I mean, what I would probably want to suggest is maybe if we can, because I know as an organization, we invite the children of the school to present in a lot of our functions, because last year, the same function, they did poems, they had some singing, and it was fabulous, right? And I know we invite you all to national events as well. What might be nice is maybe if every quarter, and you could liaise with the president, the regional coordinators, to have like a school trip to various centers. So at least they get a little acquainted with the different centers throughout the organization and they participate in the satsang. I think that will go a long way. So that's just a throwing out there. Thank you. So we have one more presentation left for the morning before we head to lunch. I will invite Sister Ariel to announce.
Sairam, everyone. Our next speaker is our male vice president. And he will be speaking on SSSIO interfaith guidelines and making Sai centers ideal. Let us welcome our most vibrant master of ceremonies today, Brother Jagdish Lakhan.
Such a wonderful introduction, thank you. So, I know we're nearing lunch, and this is meant to be a very open conversation, right? In terms of how do we create the ideal Sai Center, right? But it's hinged on the background of our whole spiritual evolution in terms of unity. So we're starting with a wonderful quote from Swami here. Right? The universe is the body of God. Every particle in it is filled with God, His glory, His might, His inscrutability. There's no place in the universe that God is not present. Believe that God is the inner truth in everything and being. He is truth. He is wisdom. He is eternal. Thus, everything in the universe is the embodiment of divinity. Right? So, this is the goal towards which Swami has put upon us. This is the goal of our own incarnations, to realize the divinity of this oneness. And what we want is our centers to reflect this oneness. What we want are the devotees of Sssiott to reflect this oneness, this unity, this love, this inspiration. This clicker is not. Which one? Excellent. Let the different faiths exist. Let them flourish, and let the glory of God be sung in all the languages and in a variety of tunes. That should be the ideal. Respect the differences between the faiths and recognize them as valid, as long as they do not extinguish the flame of unity. Right? Now, these are just reminders. I know you all know this. But we want to craft the centers along these lines so that whether you're a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, or Buddhist, you could come to the center and participate and feel at one in the center. You can greet with namaste, you can greet as assalamu alaikum, you can greet with blessings, good morning. And we welcome everybody with that love and joy. It should let every creed and race find an equal place. That is the goal of our country. That is the goal of the center as well, right? So we want to look at some key points to make our centers more inclusive, right? And we want to discuss these things after as well. Sssiott centers around the world should project with true conviction and a visual impression that is an interfaith center that respects and reveres the main religions professed in the country. So Trinidad is a very unique country where we have a variety of religions. You know, we have a lot of Hindus, a lot of Muslims, a lot of Christians, we have Buddhists, we have members of the African faith. So we want the center to show this unity as much as possible in the various ways, in the manner of the altar, in the manner of the singing, and in the manner of the prayers. So even as we launch public outreach, it is vital that Psi leaders in reach and sensitive members and leaders within Psi centers, that is an obligation to Psi and his vision to make our own Psi center places of interfaith understanding in thought, word, and deed. So what that means is that in creating an interfaith Psi center for members of the public, we have to create an interfaith Psi center for members of our own individual teams. Because many of our devotees may have come from a Hindu background, right? Now, we have to inculcate education so that the understanding that God, that Psi, is all names and all forms. So we have to have that inner education within the centers so that devotees feel a part of the center if we're singing more Christian songs, if we're singing more Islamic songs, in the understanding that there's an interfaith, that Swami is not only Hindu deities, but all deities. But we have to do that inner work. As leaders of the centers, we have to seek the transformation of the devotees within the center and that understanding before we go out to try and project that. Because it's an inner view first, right? Are you all following that? Sssiott Sai Baba says, be, do, see, and tell. Now, I'm sure you all heard this before, right? And we spoke about this a little earlier. So be interfaith in our outlook. Do things that reflect Sai's interfaith legacy. Let others see that we are truly interfaith, and then tell. Right? So as much as possible, we have to be. So we have to create a center. We have to create individuals that represents that unity of faith. You know, you have to be an individual that represents that. That represents Sai, that represents the center, that represents God and divinity in all forms. You know, when somebody sees you, I mean, whether they say you're a Sai devotee or not, they should see and experience love, kindness, joy, peace, passion, compassion. You know, and that's all you need to do. We don't have to go out there and say, you know, come to my center. They should come by you and say, you know, where do you go? What's the, you know, why are you like this? Let your transformation speak Swami's life and message. Right? So we have to be. And in that being and doing, I mean, only then tell. Right? The interfaith setup of altars in the Sai organization should also represent the interfaith of the nation. And in Trinidad, we have an interfaith nation. So try as much as possible to let your altar reflect that. Right? So have, you know, something that might represent Christianity, something that might represent Islam and Hinduism as well. Excuse me. So let's make the altar represent that. Weekly devotional singing. So what we want to ask to is that let the songs that you sing be a mix of all the religions. Every single satsang have at least one song to each major religion, at least one, right? And mix it between English as well, because we are an English-speaking country more than anything else. You know, some of us might have some Spanish devotees, so you could add a Spanish song too, you know, and then you add the Hindi song. So there's no limitation. It should just be more inclusive than just, you know, the norm, right? So let's get a lot more devotional songs of various religions and languages. And the prayers. Our prayers, if you realize, the opening prayers that we had at the session today was a mixture of the different religions. And a lot of it in English, because I don't know how many of you speak Hindi. I don't. I know some of the words because I grew up in the organization and as a Hindu. But I'm not a Hindi speaker. So the English helps me to really resonate with what is being said and what we're praying for. And the mantras, no doubt, has powerful meanings and intonations. I could do the Vedic chanting as well. But we have to have a mixture of prayers, both at the opening and closing of the centers, to make it reflect that level of interfaith that Swami is. Because Swami says that I am the form that encompasses all forms. He said, I am the form that encompasses all forms. Right? And we need to reflect that in the center. The walls of the Sai Center. Now, I actually took this from an SSIO document, right? And it was very good in laying out these topics. So they're saying even the walls of the center should reflect the level of interfaith connections. So you can have quotes from the different religions in the center's wall. You can have pictures from the different religions so that when someone comes, you know, a Hindu could be a better Hindu and feel a better Hindu there. A Muslim could come in and be comfortable. A Christian could come in and be comfortable. A member of the Baha'i faith or a member of an African religion could come and just feel at home at your center, right? But the number one thing to feeling at home, these are outward things. The most important thing is the inner thing. The welcome by you, the love that you share, the greeting that you give to a member, to a new person, you know? We should also organize activities with members of the community and other religions that strengthens that interfaith connection. So I want to ask you, like, if you are operating in a community and there's a mosque nearby or a church nearby, I mean, work with them. You know, you could invite, once there is love and understanding, you could invite them to be a part of our activities. You can join in their activities. Remember, unity is the goal. And to enact unity, you have to work with people. You have to understand people. Right? We have to share the love that Swami is here to give. Right? So that is also very, very, very key. And that being said, now the question and answer is really asking you, now, what and when do you plan to enact some of these activities into? Right? And now is the time. Now is definitely the time. So we're just open. Now, I mean, you can give a general comment or you can give a commitment to say, all right, I'm from Patiram Sri Sai Center and we're going to do this now from next week. You know? Saram.
Saram, Vidal, very good presentation. But I want to ask in this audience, is there any non-Indian? And please stand. Non-Indian. Anyone? Okay. So the point I was trying to make is that this is Trinidad and Tobago. We have 44% Indians and 44% non-Indians. And it's my, you know, when I was NCP, we started something in Belmont with Brother Felipe. And I threw out a challenge to Sister Kalauti because she's not a chairperson. You know, it's my dream before I leave office, either by Swami telling me this is enough time for you to go and settle down or take me out of this body. But it's always my dream that we have a center in this country that's not run by Indians, that's only non-Indians, you know, and the singing hymns and that kind of thing. That would be the ideal thing. And I think, you know, when I was at Riverside recently in California at the international conference last year, April, this whole question came up. The question has been there over and over and over again since I've been in the organization. But for the first time, it was being discussed at that high level. Because what opened up that conversation, an Australian white woman got up and she said how uncomfortable it felt to be in Australia in a center with Indians who only sing in bhajans. And that's how it opened up the whole can of worms, you know. So I'm just throwing out that challenge, you know. It's something that we could look at, you know, to form a center like that. How it happen, I don't know. But that's the dream that I have. Sarah.
Sairam, everyone. Brother Jagdish, I just want to say that you spoke my language today. I thoroughly enjoyed your session. As a child of many faiths in my family, my mother is a Catholic, my father was Presbyterian, my nanny and nana were Hindus, and married into a Hindu home. My first and foremost starting was in the Christian faith. My first language is English. I love to sing bhajans, hymns, qasidas, or anything like that. And we do that at St. Helena Sai Center. That is something that we do. In our recently concluded 36 bhajans, our chairman of the North Region encouraged the singing of English bhajans, hymns, and so forth. My question is, how do we format each center to have a particular format for starting, ending, singing of hymns and stuff? Because I have been to various centers and I don't hear much English singing or anything like that, or they hand me the mic and tell me, well, sing a hymn, or, and it should not be so. So what is that next step forward that we all resolve to make that change and change it at our next session?
So the recommendation is, and that's why we're having these sessions, right? Because we want participation and collective agreement going forward, right? And it has to be from the ground up, really, because the centers are the heart of the organization. So once we have the recognition that this is a need, right? And we actually have a format that we did maybe 15 years ago when we tried the same thing. And the basic format is that you have a Ganesh Guru, Devi, and then you have English, and then you have a Islamic. So you have the five major prayers at the opening of the satsang, right? And then at least when you're coordinating your bhajans, you include at least 3 or 4 English songs, an Islamic song, a Christian song. If you can do 2 each, that's fine. And it's as simple as that. Whoever is the spiritual coordinator for the center says, this is the format going forward. And we try to have at least 2 to 4 English, non-Hindu songs being sung at each satsang. And then you have the multi-religious prayers being said at the beginning and end. So that's the short, easy answer, President.
Sairam, everyone. So, 2 things. We will, from you, based on your agreement, we will now try to devise a format for the satsang based on universality. We are not going to tell you, you have to do this, but we are going to recommend that it is preferred that, say for instance, you're singing 15 songs in a session, at least 1/3 should be dedicated to all the various religions, so you incorporate everyone in your satsang. Another commitment that I will make personally, every time I go to a Sai center, I end up singing either a hymn, a qasida, or an English song, because by the time it gets round to me singing, there has been none. Everybody, someone will sing a Krishna song, the next one will sing a Krishna song, the next one will sing a Krishna song. So people plan to go to the center and say, I am singing this song. I don't business with what's going on. I come to sing this song and that's what I will sing. But you have to make sure that your altar is not just an altar, that you respect all. Jesus is on the altar, Buddha is on the altar, all the different deities. When it comes to your turn, you make sure that you represent what's on the altar. And if you don't know how to sing a hymn, I will teach you. My children and I, and whoever, we are willing to go to every center and teach people to sing English songs, because it's like only a few people in the organization know. We have a book, a fat book, that has a whole section in the back. Right, Sushila? With English songs, with hymns, with qasidas. I don't have to teach you, You go on YouTube and you sit down and you learn. But you must feel it. You must feel that when I am singing to Jesus, that is God. You must feel that when you're singing about Allah, last night we played Muslim song. What was it? Bismillah. And me and Asha stand up there and cry. Because you know why? We felt the devotion to Allah, right? But you must feel it. And how are you feeling it? How you feel it is you have to study what Allah came to teach. You have to study what Jesus came to teach. And it's all that our Lord taught us. Because he came for us to unlearn and relearn. That's what Baba came for us to do. Unlearn and relearn. We are not Hindus. We are born Hindus, some of us. But we are now Sai devotees and we are spiritual aspirants. Sairam.
Sairam, I'm Sabitri Sharon of Transfer Sai Center. Two things. Transfer has been around for as long as I have been. So it's a long time. So Transfer has been one of the centers where we do sing Sarvadharma bhajans. We do sing Krishna bhajans and the Hindu chants. We also do Islamic chants and hymns. Transfer is also one of those centers where at various religious observances / celebrations, we would include our neighboring. If you are familiar with Transfer, the Mandaridi Center is on one little incline, and on the other incline, there's a church. So during Easter, we will invite any member to come over, and likewise, they would invite during Diwali and so for us to go over. A couple of years ago, which was new to the center, we had invited an Islamic group. I can't remember if it was Astra or TML or whichever, but they came to the center in celebration of Eid al-Fitr.
Wow.
So Transfer has been doing that
Excellent.
for a long time. Okay, yeah, all faiths are included. One question I have though. Through the years, because I grew up as a Balvikas student into the organization, we started where the format for satsang, where you have your opening prayer, you have your various bhajans. Then we went on to Subramaniam and had our meditation, and then your message, closing exercises. Lately, when we go to other centers, it's a little bit different, where we may or may not hear the Subramaniam before meditation. My question is it anyone goes, or is there a particular format before we go into meditation?
Yeah, well, the recommendation is to have the Subramaniam, because, I mean, the Subramaniam song is really protection for reaching home safely as well. So most of the centers would have, I think, fall into that norm, which is excellent. Now, as we say, nothing is mandatory. You could sing something else that might have that same divine protection, right? Dr. Tiwari would add.
Yeah, I've been to centers, well, throughout the West Indies, all right, like in Curacao, Barbados, Jamaica, Suriname, Guyana. There's no, Subramaniam is not mandatory. You could or could not do it. I would say meditation is and should be, or silent sitting should be mandatory. You know, how you settle into it, it depends on your choice. You could do Gayatri before, you could do Asatoma, and just settle the mind of devotees. You know, but I would think it is mandatory for Subramaniam. You know, it's a choice that you can make. You know, I mean, there's sung in Prashanti. You know, but even the bhajans in Prashanti, in Kulwantwal, they just start with the Ganesh, you know. They don't do like what we do and do Devi and Guru and so on in any kind of order, you know. So, I mean, those things are really optional and it depends on how the center really wants to do it. But I think what should be optional is what Sister Vinti and, you know, Jagdish suggested, that we should really try to incorporate, you know, songs of multi-faith. And just singing Sarva Dharma is not enough, because Sarva Dharma is in Hindi, you know. So somebody from the outside coming in here in Sarva Dharma, and they'll hear Ram and they might hear Jehovah, but it doesn't make sense to them. So that's why we're talking about do an English hymn, you know. They're hymns. There's a kasida. And somebody coming in will know for sure this is a multi-faith organization. It's a spiritual organization. It is not a religion. Sarah.
Okay. One last, or two half and half in the back. we were just closing up for lunch.
Siram, I have a Rasta partner. I say no way you've never hear a jazz song in a Sssiott song. It's no symbol of jazz.
We are the right singer there, man. You can learn a jazz song, One Love, you know.
No, you were joking. You know you're joking.
Madam, we want you to sing one of that later.
A Rasta song?
When we doing our evening program, we want you to sing One Love.
They say, Jah
We sang that for Baba, you know.
The thing with this thing, right? A lot of people are very, very sensitive.
Yeah. So
and from the time they hear Om, it becomes a Hindu thing.
So and we have to realize, sorry.
They use every excuse not to be there. From the time they hear Om, they see it as a Hindu thing. So we have to be careful to what we eliminate and we try to cut to fit people in, because from the time they have certain things and you do RT and they want to receive the vibhuti. So if we keep tripping down things and keep watering down things, we'll lose the vibrations and the essence of satsang. But I was saying, but from the time they see it now, I mean, keep trimming. Sorry.
Art is not mandatory.
But if we keep trimming, we're going to bald head, like.
So, I mean, we definitely take your points. And it is not, certain things like Om is conceived as a Hindu thing, but it's beyond Hindu. I mean, if we understand where it comes from, it's supposed to be the first vibration in the universe. Now, Hindus might want to claim it, but it really can't be claimed. And the vibration of just the sound of Om is beneficial to your very being. So we're not saying that we're going to take out Om because we just want people to come in, because we are who we are at the same point in time, right? We're just trying to add to that. And I mean, really mix it into the flavor of the community. And we can have...
I just want to say that about 3 years ago, we kind of restructured our program to make it more universal in its approach, because we do have like regular members who are non-Indians.
Yes.
And occasionally we get, like friends and so on dropping in. So we want to make it more appealing to everyone. And so our prayers is very simply oh Lord, I take my hands and whatever. The Ganesh mantra we start off with. Then we make sure we include a Ganesh bhajan. And after that we just sing bhajans. We always include hymns and qasidas. Our closing prayers also very simple to include the Our Father Muslim prayer, and so that it can appeal to everyone across the board. And that seems to work very well for us. I think, though, we need to include more hymns and more English songs in our satsang, not just one. One is just like a token.
Yeah.
So to me, that doesn't make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sister. And I mean, what I can say is that I know the Baratara Science Center and the Port of Spain Science Center, you might see a little more mix of individuals there. And I guess it's location specific based on the population in the area as well, right?
Mr. Chairman, I know you want to close for lunch, but I tend to think a bit differently to this. I think to really go out there to the public and to influence people in the public, you have to actually influence people in a center to start with. If you are the spiritual coordinator, the chairman of a center, and you cannot get the lead singer to do a qasida, or even if that is hard, or a hymn, or English bhajans or something, what is the use you're going to influence people outside if we cannot influence people in our own centers?
100% agree, and that's why one of the points was that the inner service, where you have to have that discussion within the center first, right? Because otherwise there will be conflict within the center if you're trying to do that and everybody is not understanding or they're not on board, right? Brother.
Sairam, Navet Sai Center. Navet Sai Center has been existing for a great number of years, since 1986. And I have been the chairperson for that center for a number of years, and I have never infringed on the right of any devotee or devotees to express their love to Bhagwan through song or bhajans. I have never done that. I have never said you have to do this or you have to do that. I always left it open. That is one. And the other thing is, I would like to ask everybody before lunch, what is universal? Is it bhajan? Is it kasida? Is it hymn? Or is it Swami's love? What is universal?
I think that's a rhetorical question, right? So it is love, of course, but it's how you express that love, right?
So she said some time ago she was coming into the center and a Venezuelan lady was at the gate and was asking about, this is where Sai Baba satsangs were held. And she said, well, she told her, yes, the satsang apparently was already in progress. And I don't know if by the, how people were dressed, she got a little bit maybe intimidated, and so she did not come in. So we also have to look at how we dress for satsangs and service and make that more appealing to peoples of other faith so that they're not intimidated by how we wear our clothing, how we dress.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Last two
Sarah.
comments,
Yeah.
please.
I think we should just change it from bhajan to devotional singing. That'll make a big difference, We're not having bhajans. We're having devotional singing. And that's something we could talk about also.
Sairam, this is a very sensitive topic because the Sri Satya Sai Baba organization, though we are universal, we attract more Hindus than other religions. So we really have to think deep to put a structure in place because we don't want to offend anyone. And in doing so, we have to understand that certain structure is embedded in certain centers. Because I will go to some centers, I will not hear, there will be nothing like universality. And I try to say, well, this is how it should be done. So we need to put a structure in place for opening and closing. That is very important, and we have to understand that the organization is about universality, and it's not a Hindu-based organization. Though most of us are Hindus, we need to understand that, and we need to also understand that this universality came from Swami. Sister Vinti or Kalauti or anybody here did not change it. But we need to put a structure in place because when you go to one center, you hear a different opening. You go to another center, you hear a different opening. And it's confusing, So I think we should start with that. Universality, let's start with a common opening, a common closing. That is my little...
Yes, and the President just indicated that we will draft a structure so that we could send out and we could all use to have some standardization and universality in it. And we would move to close this morning segment. How did you all enjoy the first few sessions? I am very hungry and very thirsty. But in the meantime, some quick announcement. Whiteboard in the back there. I want to ask you all to just, put what you've learned for the day, put a little comment, share a positive thought, just share it with us so that we could all enjoy your learnings. And freshen up, as Dr. Gautam said, we have a buffet of food. I am not sure what the menu is, but I am sure it's going to be sumptuous, it's going to be healing, and it's going to be uplifting. And yes, we want to say a little shout out to our live stream members who have joined us on Facebook and so on. We really appreciate you being with us. And a big shout out to the media team. This is if you have a chance, just check the live stream link and you would see it's actually very well done. You actually can see the presentation screen and the speaker at the same time, which might be even better than if you're sitting at the back because you mightn't see the words. So maybe you could click in on silent and you could read from the back if you so choose. But it's a fabulous job, and thank you so much for the media team. So I have an announcement for the live stream so they could join us back in an hour, right? Yes. Okay. So we're going to do a silent food prayer. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes just for a few moments as we offer the food to the divine and we partake in the meals. Please enjoy your lunch and see you in about 45 minutes.